Well, in middle school and high school, I swam on a competitive swim team. I started in the 4th grade, and by the end of my sophomore year, I had really hit this wall. I don't know what caused it. I don't know that we ever know what causes the walls when we're competing, but I had definitely hit a giant block that was impacting my ability to be competitive. Each race, I just got slower and slower, and the stitch in my side just got worse and worse. I'll never forget at the end of my sophomore year in the summer, we were at the end swim meet of the year, and I just wasn't feeling it. Might have been the fact that it was 100 degrees in a Midwest heat and humidity. We're in the relay race. It was the last race of the day, and I was off pace significantly, and it impacted our team. Now, a coach's responsibility is to motivate you and to find out as an athlete how you are motivated versus other people. Well, my coach took this opportunity in front of everyone to come up and yell at me that I was letting everyone down. It was not motivational. It did not work. And I decided at the start of my junior year that I was done swimming. And I was never happier. Although I think my coach was never angrier. I often expressed to my parents an appreciation for their support to say it's okay to be done with something. And I sometimes expressed to them a little bit of regret in not enduring through that wall to find myself on the other side. And my father always says to us, don't ever forget that you were not having any fun. Which means your parents were not having any fun. It is okay to stumble. It's okay to fall. And it is okay to then need others to help you find a new way forward. How many of you have ever been in a competitive race and fallen down? How many of you have ever, in your daily life, tripped over your own 2 feet? How many of you have stumbled personally in life and been disappointed with yourself or know that others are disappointed in you? Well, Paul's letter to the people called Hebrews is not actually Paul. It's what we call a pseudo-Pauline letter. It's written by someone else who's using Paul's name so that people might actually read it, which is not a bad tactic. But knowing that doesn't mean that it's detrimental to the text's validity for our world. We should just simply be clear with one another. This isn't Paul. The audience is also a little bit murky. Scholars believe that it is a conversation between Jews who are following Jesus and Jews who are following the temple priests. And there is a conflict unfolding in the localized church community. The author, however, throughout the letter mirrors a faith process of Paul that we find from the book of Romans. Paul's framework for faith goes like this. Suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. This is the living framework of our faith. This is what makes us people of faith. But our starting point isn't hope. Because hope is on the horizon. Our starting point is suffering. When you're in your daily life and you stumble and fall and you're on the ground, do you immediately look up and find the horizon? No. You look at the ground and assess whether you can get up on your own or you need help. And then you look and figure out if you're bleeding and need further medical attention. Then you look up. See, we don't need a hope that's built on cliches. We need a hope that's built on sacrifices. I don't need a hope that comes from the musical version of the sun will come out tomorrow. I need a hope that is real. A real hope that finds a way where there isn't one. A hope that comes from falling down. A hope that knows what it means to find the light in the middle of the darkness. The author of this letter knew that hope because the people, whether they're Jews or Gentiles, whether they're Jesus followers or temple followers, they know what it means to suffer. They are living under an occupied enemy. They would never be able to overthrow the Roman Empire, So where do they find hope? Where do they find hope in the darkness? Suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. Now, I cannot help but naturally see the alignment of that framework of faith with the story of Simone Biles at the Olympics. How many of you remember the 2021 Olympics, right? Do you remember what happened to Simone? She had a condition called the twisties. This is what happens to gymnasts when they're flipping through the air forward and then also twisting around at the same time, and they lose their focal point. And so when they hit the ground, they have no idea which way is up, and they cannot stick the landing. Simone's decision in the 2021 Olympics was to step aside and let others take the lead in the midst of her personal struggles. What I love about the story, though, is she didn't go to the locker room. She didn't go back to the hotel. She didn't even get on a plane and come home. She stayed in the arena, supporting others in the midst of their competitive struggle. Now, it is worth noting here that some cantankerous commentators tried to frame Biles' choice as selfish, letting Team USA down, an inability to persevere, and, I quote, coddling millennials. All that does is deny her right to do what she needed to do for herself. One commentator even said that it would be unfathomable to consider Michael Jordan, the GOAT of basketball, blowing out in the middle of the NBA Finals or the '92 Olympics. Unfortunately, what that commentator doesn't state is that Jordan left basketball for a time period. When his father was murdered, he stepped away from the sport because he could not find the ability to be present. He would then come back later to win 3 more national championships. We need to name for everyone, whether you're an Olympian or you work at McDonald's, whether you are a college professor or you are a middle school student, your mental health is more important than winning. Your mental health is more important than doing what you think is expected of you. Your mental health is more important than what others tell you is important. Being a person of faith means experiencing suffering that produces endurance, endurance that produces character, and character that produces hope. And so what did Simone do after the 2021 Olympics? She got back up on the vault and back up on the beam, and she continued to persevere. And if you saw anything about her at this Olympics, you knew she was on a mission when she went to Paris. But it wasn't without suffering. After Simone fell off that beam and Suni fell off that beam, they took second and third. But you know what they did? They supported the person who took first, who did not fall off the beam. I love this image because it mirrors the writer of Hebrews, who is inviting us to create a world of support for one another. That's what the Olympics is about. It's not about winning. It's never been about winning. It is about creating a global community of connection. Now, unless I don't know something about you, I don't think anyone here is actually competing for a gold medal. And most of us probably aren't even competing in a sport. But I want to name, we are all struggling through life. And we should never diminish that. We're struggling as we age. We're struggling with the realities of life. We struggle with tragedy and death and change. We struggle with children who are growing and learning. We struggle with children who are forging their own paths in the world. We struggle with traumas. You are struggling. But you do not struggle and suffer alone. That's what the Jews and the Gentiles were learning in this new community together, that they were in it together. And only together do we find hope. Suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. The Olympics are about being in this together. church is about being in this together. Look at the people on your left. Look at the people on your right. Look at the people behind you. Turn around. Look at these folks around you. Make sure you make eye contact with them. You are in this together. And together is where we find hope. Amen.